Hi there. I'm hoping to do a quick little video about today's full moon and the general astrology we're feeling right now. And I'm guessing for most of us, it doesn't feel so hot. So let's back up a little bit to last week. We had, excuse me, a major square going on between two planets that don't really get along, generally speaking. But when they're in what we call a square formation, a square is a right angle, 90 degrees. That 90 degrees adds more tension and for the purpose of growth, but it doesn't feel great. And particularly when you have a planet like Mars who's here to get things going and move forward, and then Saturn who's like, no, we're not going anywhere. We have some lessons to learn and we need to, you know, be responsible about this and that, and we'll delay things and there'll be some burdensome types of energy going on there. So that was already going on and is continuing to go on in the background because Mars is moving, but it's still slowly, but it perfected last week. And Saturn is retrograding, so it's going in the opposite direction. So they are quickly moving away from each other in some way, but my point is that effect is over. It easily was lasting a week up to it and the week after. So that's been kind of going on in the background. And frankly, those two planets, because they literally butt heads, one wants to go forward, the other one's like, we're not going anywhere, leads to arguments and disagreements and war, quite literally at times. So I just wanted to mention that because I was commenting how, it's bigger because Jupiter is also sitting with Mars. So it's kind of blowing up or expanding that Mars energy, and making it even bigger. And that both of those planets have been squaring Saturn. And so, and Jupiter's the same way. Like it wants to make things bigger. It wants to broaden it. And Saturn is saying, nope, we're restricting it. So that's been going on in the background. And so I would say in a lot of ways we could see that as becoming, excuse me, very aware of our limitations to be able to move forward in a variety of ways in our life. There's also a lot of planets that are retrograding right now. So Saturn is retrograding, Neptune, Pluto, they're all retrograding. Chiron is retrograding, and Mercury is retrograding. So, and Mercury, it feels more acute, for us because it's closer to us than these outer planets that are a bit further out. So, we're in about halfway through the Mercury retrograde cycle. It'll be done by the end of the month. It'll turn around and go direct and then walk through the same path it just went through once, then twice backwards, and now going forward. So my point is we're reviewing something. I feel like, it's a time where we're really looking at where have we maybe not thought some things through, where have we, given, not like, for instance, it could be around like our boundaries, like where have we not had enough boundaries and we need to go back and put that in? Where do we need more structure? Because when you have that Saturn influence going on with it, Saturn is also interested in creating structure, particularly sustainable structure that you can build upon. That's why it holds things back and make sure you're doing it right. It wants something that's going to last. So just again, those two major energies going on in the background. And then you fast forward to today and we've got the full moon. Is one thing. We have actually a couple things going on today, but let's just talk the full moon because this is the thing we all feel every month, usually leading 3 days up to the full moon. Today's the actual full moon. Actually, I think it perfects itself within an hour or two. And we feel those effects the 3 days leading up to it and the 3 days after it. So you've been probably, feeling this energy. Now, what is unique about this full moon? Well, it is the sun is in, when we have a full moon, it means the sun is in one sign and the moon is the opposing sign. So right now the sun is in the late degrees of Leo. We're finishing up Leo season, which means the opposite sign is Aquarius. And that's where the moon is today. And so, it's about, I think it's at 27 degrees. Yeah, 15 minutes is where the moon will perfect that opposition with the sun. But the other thing that's going on is the sun is also right on top of that Mercury retrograde in Leo. So currently the sun is at 27 degrees and Mercury retrograde is at 26 degrees. So a lot of the times we love when we call, like when Mercury and the sun come together, it's an opportunity for us to get new messaging, for us to have insights, for communication to go well. But when it's going retrograde, it's not going to have that same energy. As a matter of fact, it's going to feel like a little bit like we're getting pulled back and like having to review conversations, having to review like plans or thought patterns that we tend towards. I think in a lot of ways, what's going on with this full moon, which I'll explain more of, is really asking us to look at where we keep going to old patterns and ways of thinking that are not moving us forward, so reviewing that. The other thing that's going on, so that with the full moon in Aquarius, it's technically ruled by two planets. The modern would be Uranus and the other being Saturn. So we've already talked about Saturn's got a lot going on right now because it's also, it's squaring Jupiter. It's squaring two planets right now, Jupiter and Mars. So the ruler of this full moon is already creating some pretty massive tension in the background. But the other ruler is Uranus, and Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury, so it's, when we think of the inner planets, these are the planets that we can literally see with the naked eye. So Mercury, Mars, Venus, Jupiter are those planets, even Saturn. But once you're beyond Saturn, which the next planet is Uranus, you can't see it, with the naked eye. So it tends to represent the planets that are Uranus and beyond, represent the higher octave of these inner planets that are more the spiritual, intangible meanings. So, for instance, Mercury is our communicator, our translator, ideas, mental activity, our intellect, the way we're going to communicate with each other in all different ways. Whereas Uranus is the higher octave of that. It's how we are communicating with the divine. And when it comes with, when we think about the divine, and we think about what Uranus is about, it acts like lightning. It's very like boom, literally lightning comes down, strikes, causes some kind of change in the environment. Obviously when we have lightning storms, there's all kinds of literal electricity in the air, and that electricity produces, fire, and that fire can produce all kinds of things, from in its wake. So this full moon is also squaring Uranus. So Uranus is sudden change. It's the part of, why it's the ruler of Aquarius. It's about being the rebel. It's about, doing the humanitarian things. It's creating sudden change or changes that are really for our good in the long term. But, how many humans do you know love change? They don't do well with change in general, in the actual experience of change. We fear change a lot of the time. But what we learn through Uranus, it is through change and, through these hardships that it forces us to go to another part of ourselves, particularly another part of ourselves that's related to our faith, whatever your faith might be in this living experience, Like for me, I have faith in nature because it repeats its cycles. We rely on it quite literally for our living environment and our ability to nourish ourselves. So it's, to me, the most tangible thing that I can look to for guidance when I'm thinking from a higher perspective and the bigger picture. But other people, it would be religion, or the divine is what I also will use, is this, energy that's bigger than us, let's call it. So all that to say, you got a full moon going on. That already brings a lot of energy. You've got, the retrograding planets. That's bringing a contentious, pulling us backward kind of energy. Then you've got a square between the full moon, which, again, let's not forget that sun is also with a retrograding Mercury. So now we've got that squaring Uranus, who's bringing sudden changes. I kind of think of it like this is a moment where we're looking at something maybe we've been dealing with for a long time and we keep trying to fix it or shift it. This could be in our interpersonal relationships. This could be with our relationship between our jobs and our home life, and like what needs to change to have some level of balance going on. Uranus is going to just come in and say, I'm going to have my way with you, strike down the lightning, and you're going to have to make the change whether you like it or not. The good news is it just gets done on our behalf. Then we got to kind of clean up or work with that and move in a particular direction. but we will definitely have a different perspective as a result of it. So, and I think that in particular that we have the Mercury retrograding also happening, squaring that. So it feels very much about reviewing old crap and, like creating some shifts, creating some sudden change, allowing our freedom and our liberation to be more important, than our duty, to whatever it is we're taking care of in our life. And with that said, we have to take care of things in our life. And so sometimes we actually just need these changes to start realizing we got to change the structures around us. I got to start figuring out another way to do all this. So that's kind of what I wanted to bring up today, because it does not feel good. Like I've been talking about, my phone has not stopped ringing. A lot of people, for whether it's for sessions or my friends or my family or just these things people are dealing with, really, really difficult things, death and, things going on with teens and, just the pressure. We got a lot of pressure on us as a species right now. The United States, while, it is not the center of the world in a lot of ways from a global perspective, the world is always looking at the United States, and particularly the circus that we've been running here for a long time. And, the things that happen here will, impact the global economy in so many ways. And so, when we have an election season going on, the pressure and the intensity is up, because we're facing, a lot of different aspects of ourselves in election seasons as a country, as far as what we deem to be important. Who do we want to be our leader? And unfortunately, there's just too many humans that still think that our election system is a viable, just system, and it's not, and it hasn't been. And so it's yet people will still want to keep going back to it because of these old narratives that they think it's like, something we're supposed to do, and something we have, just there's a lot of narratives that we've been taught that maybe are not the true narrative, actually, So that's what I think of from a global collective perspective right now, when you've got Mercury, the planet of articulation, mental activity, messages, going backwards, squaring the planet of liberation. I'm here for humans and the humanitarian causes. And I'm going to be a rebel about it. Like, I'm not going to just keep doing what I've always done. It's not gotten me anywhere. I just find everyone I'm speaking to, they're in this loop. I myself have found myself in this loop with certain relationships in my life. And at some point you gotta do something different. You gotta make a change, or no one's growing and no one's evolving. And, when you do care about people, it's very hard sometimes to just say, I will not anymore, and I won't participate in this anymore, or I can't anymore. And, feel guilty or burdened to yourself and to the other person for making that change, or having to feel things, because now you're not doing that comfortable thing. Sorry. Wouldn't be Jersey without a lot of background noise. So I want to just give you this opportunity to use this full moon. Maybe take some time today and just try to sit still a little bit, or go for a walk, and almost ask the full moon to give you the personal message for yourself. What is the breakthrough you need to have right now? What is the thing you're going to do that's different than what you've done before, as it relates to this area that just keeps looping around and doesn't change? Where are you continuing to honor ways of being that are not sustainable? We as a society tend to think it's some way that we're supposed to continue to be, not remembering that we are co-creators of this earth and the way that it is. And we can keep pointing at these people in the office and saying they're responsible, but we are responsible. And that's Saturn right now, is trying to say we are actually responsible for how we move forward. We have it within our power to, make change, or decide, I'm not going to keep doing that. I'm not going to keep voting for people that don't represent who I am. I'm not going to pick the better of two evils. Evil's evil, so... and I think it's really important for those of you, in this moment where we've had a shift in our presidency, And now suddenly you have this, like, you're creating these narratives about this person who, I'm sorry, has actually not done a whole lot in their time in the office already to do anything about the actual issues we're facing. So why all of a sudden is there this narrative of like, she's gonna this and she's gonna that, and it's like, it's delusional. It's actually delusional. So you got to start thinking for yourself. You got to start thinking about, like, what do I actually know about this person? Just because something feels good, sounds good, doesn't mean it is that way. It actually is being marketed to you that way. I mean, just look at half of what our food supply looks like, and what the products in this country look like. They are loaded with chemicals, and we've all bought into, like, it was a good idea to bottle water and put it in plastic. We bought into all of these things that actually we just turn around and go, wow, that hasn't been so great for us now, has it? It's not so good to privatize something like a natural resource where now someone has control over that resource. Like, we gotta, like, go to the next place. And those of you that are staying in this loop, you're gonna get left behind by another group who's saying no more. And that group that's saying no more is also not going to argue with you about it anymore. They're just going to let you go. So, I mean, it's really like, this is a time where you got to do something different than what you've done. And activism isn't putting a bunch of things on social media that make you look a certain way, or, that is not activism. Activism is actually doing something actively in your environment and in your community or with your life to make a difference. And I can tell you that you doing that makes no difference. If it did, don't you think by now we'd have made a lot of difference in this country? With all these issues that don't go away, they just continue to circle around and keep all of us arguing with each other, even though I would bet 85% of us want the same things. We will choose to argue with each other about it. So I feel like this full moon is throwing that in our face right now, because it's in Aquarius, which is about humans. It's humanitarian causes. It's this squaring Uranus that's the rebel and going like, you got to break free. When are you going to do something different? You got Mercury retrograding and saying like, maybe you should review where you've been and the way that you think about this. Maybe that's not exactly so. Additionally, we have another square going on between Saturn. Saturn is opposing Venus. Now, what is Venus? Venus is our relationships. It's our love. It's the feminine. It is money. It's what brings us pleasure. It is opposing Saturn, who's like, I'm going to teach you lessons about that. And so we look at the planet that is squaring that in that formation, and that is Jupiter and Mars. So ironically, that is about taking action. You need to take like big action now in your life. So to me, this is like it's a big squeezed message that's been starting in the last week, and it will go through this week. But today is the culmination of this messaging. And we will see it in the news. I have no doubt we will see a reflection of exactly what I'm saying in the news. I don't watch the news. I don't particularly find it to be something that ever is supportive in me doing anything that helps anyone. It just gets me into a state of feeling, helpless and fearful, which is the point of it. So I don't honor that. I honor the news that comes from the planets, and I am here to relay it to people, to remind them that, like, that is the real, these are real. As far as I can tell, these planets are real in the sky. What's going on from these talking heads across the screen that are, pretty much owned by very small group of people that have a very clear mission on this planet to own as much of it and monopolize it as much as they can. Yeah, I'm not going to believe what's coming out of that. Just like I don't believe science that is funded by the people who want that research to come out in favor of what they are selling. There's so much that needs to be debunked, and I think that people really need to get, become a little bit more aware of these systems that we have been taught and told are superior. And actually, they are very inferior and slow and not working fast enough, and we all need to start developing our intuitive abilities. We need to start remembering that we are a energetic being that resides at a vibrational level, and we have control over where that is at any given moment. There's plenty of books you can read on this. So my recommendation today is get real. Get real with what's actually going on, and don't be afraid of it. There's no need to run, but there is a need to act. We need to take action in our life and start doing what is best for us as a single human being and as a, planet of human beings that are interdependent on this planet. We need to start shifting these ways. We need to actually create new ways, So that's my message today, peeps. I think it is an opportunity for us. Whenever Jupiter is involved, it is an opportunity. Whenever Uranus is involved, there is an opportunity there. It's just a matter of, are we going to take it? Or are we going to keep trying to do the same thing and expect a different result? Which what the definition of that is. It's insanity. And I am very clear, I hate to say this, but since I've been back in the States since February, many of the people around me are not doing so hot. And I would actually say that it's that level of insanity that's like taking over in some level. Doing the same thing, expecting a different result. Doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And I'm at a point now where for myself, I have the same things going on like anyone else, and I need to take different actions. I need to move forward somehow and not just sit frozen in time and afraid to make a choice. It's time to make some choices, and not just any choices, but choices that are going to move us and our life and our mission here forward, and not keep it be staying in these reactive states with each other. It's getting us nowhere. Every single person on this planet has trauma. I don't care what you think you have or haven't, whether you have experienced trauma. And the thing with trauma is you don't just have yours. You have generations before you trauma that needs to get healed. And until we heal that, we are generally going to keep coming from that place of being wounded and reacting in that way, which doesn't help a time like this, where some of us need to take the torch and start leading people forward. So I'll end on that, and I'm just saying all this to be real with you, and have you look at this as an opportunity. Have you look at this as an opportunity. Stress is actually an opportunity to go, where is that stress coming from? What is it about, and what is it asking of me? Could it be for me to do something different and take an action that might be harder, like I've been avoiding, but for me, I've had to I've had to basically as an example, just tell a person in my life, I need space. This isn't healthy for me. And I need to put boundaries there. I had to do that in my private practice. I've had to do that with family members. We all are different in that way, in that regard. And, our charts are very good indicators of where that tension is being created. So I'll put it out there again every time I put one of these videos out. Right now, my work is changing, and I think come September, I won't be necessarily offering, one-off readings. So if that's something that you really would like, I highly recommend you ask for it sooner than later. And, we can do that. So reach out to me if you want to have a natal reading, and I can give you an idea of also what's going on in your chart. And I can do that via recording and send it to you once you give me your information. Or we can have a live call. That one's a little bit more expensive, because we'll have more dialogue in the conversation. It tends to go a little longer, but, but there's trust. Everyone that I've sent the recording to has come back with kind of blown away in the way that it resonates. So, if you need a perspective that is outside of what you normally get from the people around you, then call somebody, me, anyone, any guide, any healer, any person who's been staying focused on this, type of evolution, that we're going through, and reach out to them. It's going to give you some confidence, and it's going to give you some solace and some affirmative, feeling about what you're going through. And it's not in vain. There is a reason for it. And when we know that and we can feel that and sense that, then we are more willing to put ourselves forward and take those more difficult steps with ourselves. Okay, I'm going to end here because I will keep going. All right, I'm sending love to you all. Happy full moon in Aquarius. Be the rebel in your life. Do what is needed to move things forward for yourself. Liberate yourself. All right? Lots of love. Ciao, ciao.